All right, fellas, welcome back to another Front Row Dad podcast interview. My new friends, Joey and Heath, are here. We're talking about phones and focus. And funny enough, just before I hit record, I went to turn my phone off and I saw a message and I picked it up and I started to read the message. And I'm like, how perfect is this that happened seconds before a conversation that relates to screens and focused present energy. But I want to celebrate very quickly that the point of the message, which is actually beautiful, aside from the fact that I was being distracted, is that my wife just sent me this text. I'm going to read it. She said, I want to share with you that last night was very healing for me. I'm grateful for your request to snuggle. And then it goes on and on. But let me tee this up. Last night, I was pissed. I was ready to sleep on the couch. I was outside the room, disconnected, and I felt like I was sitting there with all of this heaviness because we had this big argument with Tatiana and I. I was sitting there with all this heaviness, and I thought, I create my reality. And if I want to sit out here and be heavy and dark and disconnected, I can do that. I can feel this, and I could be justified, and I could be right. But then I got up, and it took everything I had, and I walked to the door. And she was getting ready for bed, and I just peeked in and I was like, can we snuggle? And she said, yes. And then we hopped in bed and we snuggled, and she goes, I'm so grateful, for that. And I realized how quickly you can change your focus. You can change your reality. You can change the vibe. You can feed the field in your home differently. And that, interestingly enough, is the perfect segue to talk with Joey and Heath today, who created a product that captivated my attention because phones and screens for me and in our family is such an issue, both for myself and my wife, but also our 13-year-old now, and also our 8-year-old. It's a daily conversation. So Joey and Heath put together this product that helps us to re-engage. So I know our community well enough to know that that's enough of a hook to jump into the conversation. But fellas, I'm grateful that you're here. I'm excited for this conversation today. Thank you for making time.
John,
Dude, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. What, by the way, what a great story, and the control and power that we have to totally dictate the environment. Ironically, my family, we were leaving for church, and I was a freaking grump monster. Like I was just being a jerk all morning. And of course, going to church, which is great. Great job, Joey. But I decided, we got in the garage, and I said, hold on, just that one little pause. So I went to each person, opened each person's door, and I gave everybody a kiss on the forehead, and that changed everything. It's that little bit. It's that, I don't know if it's is that the pride thing? It's got to be the pride that prevents us from doing that. But holy crap, you have that opportunity to completely change the mode, the environment, and how everybody feels around you. What power we have, the power of life and death really to us is in the way that we treat the ones closest to us.
I love this idea that we can be a thermostat or a thermometer in our home. And as the men in our homes, we have to decide, which are we going to be? Are we victims of what's happening around us? Or do we take on the role of the thermostat and change what's occurring in our homes? And that is what you guys did so brilliantly. And let's talk about it. Let's talk about this beautiful product that you created. Whichever one of you wants to start here, I'd love to begin with the origin story, however you want to unpack it, whether it was your own personal struggle that led to the invention, or if you want to just get right into the product and then back into the story. I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, I'll start, taking us back about 10 years ago. So my son, who's almost 15 now, his name's Harrison. He's the greatest kid in the world. He's a great student, great tennis player. When he was 5 years old, he was a bad soccer player. So he's progressed into something else, but soccer was not his thing yet. We were on the team. He was on the team. And so we're playing in this first soccer season, and the story, it's the one kid who's not scored the goal. So Harrison was the only kid on the team who had not scored a goal. So yet another Saturday, my wife and I are sitting on the lawn chairs on the sidelines watching his soccer game. And it's like this magical moment arises. You hear the, cue up the cinematic music in the background. It's Harrison, the ball, the goal. So he rears back his leg. He kicks the soccer ball. It goes end over end in slow motion, of course, to the back of the net. So Harrison scores his first soccer goal, and everybody, again, the kid who hadn't scored scored. So the crowd goes wild. Coach runs out, lifts him up. It's this jubilant moment. And what does a 5-year-old boy do when he scores his first soccer goal? He looks to dad. That's exactly right. It's exactly what happened. He looks to dad to share this moment, to see, Dad, are you proud of me? But I missed it, Jon. I missed the entire moment. That everything I just told you about, I didn't see a bit of it. I've been told that story because I was looking down at my phone, and I missed every bit of that. And it's one of those seminal moments. I can't say I got a lot better after that, but I look back on that thinking that that's a moment that I missed that I can't get back, but I can control my future. I can hopefully help a lot of other parents do that. And what's funny about that story, that was 2 miles away at that moment. There was a guy named Heath Wilson who I had not yet met. And Heath was at the peak of his career. Heath was about to sell his business to NASDAQ and have a very successful exit. And even in all of that success, he was thinking about this exact same thing.
Well, let me first say it took me 19 years before I went with the snuggle apology. So way ahead of me. And I've been married for 20. So it almost was a 90% it took me to make that leap. But it does work over and over. So I've learned that trick, and it's genuine, but I've learned the trick.
It is. Yeah.
No, for me, look, I call myself an accidental entrepreneur. I was 26. I had an idea with some buddies. We started a business, primarily just got caught up in the environment and thought, well, let's go do this thing. And we had unexpected success. But through that unexpected success, I kind of wrapped my identity up in being at work, leave everything else at home. I've been married for 20 years. I've got 4 kids. So it's not like I have, a lack of responsibilities. There are things I need to do as a husband and as a father, but I kind of forgot that for a while. So RO is really the story of my personal failures along the way, and then recognition that something needed to change. And there's a bunch of stories. I recall one year my son was in 5th grade. I've got my 2 oldest kids are twins, boy-girl twins, but he was in 5th grade. He writes has to do a little project in his class to say what he would buy his parents for Christmas. And he writes to me, he says, Dad, I would buy you the gift of family time. He's 5th grade, right? I don't know what the age is, 10 or 11, but it just hit me. I said, I'm doing something wrong. Oh, and by the way, while I was working and building a business, I was also doing Ironman triathlons. I was reading a bunch of books. Like, I was totally consumed with Heath, right? Achieve. So I think understanding that failures and looking through the lens of, oh, wow, I've got all these kids that are in middle school and about to get infinity in their pocket, and I'm a terrible role model. I just knew I had to be better for them. I had to be better for my family, and I wanted them to be better, candidly. I didn't want them to repeat what I had done. So starting from this place of personal failure, I then had a couple moments of recognition where I just realized that everyone was struggling with it. And that primarily came through a couple mentoring experiences. Then I just dug into the research and said, all right, why hasn't anyone solved this? What apps are out there? What else is out there to try to limit or at least change the relationship we have with our phone? And I couldn't find anything. Moved into just some, basic things at the house, trying to test cardboard boxes and whatnots. But eventually I got to a point of hope, and I thought, hey, we could do something here. And I had retired, I guess, semi-retired from my company at that point. We had sold it, but that lasted about 45 days before I called Joey and said, hey man, we got to go solve this. And I told him at the time, I said, look, I'm going to spend a lot of money to solve this for my family. And I know if we can solve it for mine, we can solve it for everyone.
It's beautiful. Let's just leap into the present moment and describe the product and the service, and really, as you've articulated it, the lifestyle behind RO.
Well, I'll start by saying we spent the last 4 years working on this. So it's not like this just came about, a couple months ago. And really the impetus was, we don't have good habits. Habits, keep us in check. Habits help us accomplish, our vision. And a lot of this was built upon, Atomic Habits and other habit books around what is the actual habit loop and how do we create good habits. And it occurred to us that none of us have a place for our phone. Therefore, it ends up in our pocket or on person somewhere else. And the data would support that as well. 91% of Americans keep their phone within reach 24/7, right? Which means we're also sleeping with it beside our bed. So I knew the challenge was not to create an app, where you can click a button and say, I want to put my phone down. The challenge was to get the phone out of the hand. So that's where it started with. We've got to define a place, and it's got to be a beautiful place inside the home. It's got to be wife approved, so I can live in a kitchen or family room. And it has to call to you and say, hey, here's an invitation. Put the phone away. Go engage with those that are most important to you. So we knew it couldn't. So I say that only because it couldn't just be a place, right? We all have drawers and baskets and cabinets. It had to be something that was motivational in a sense and rewarded you for your time away. So we took this concept of a visual cue and said, let's build a beautiful place. And then let's wrap an app around it that encourages you and nudges you and an entire motivational system design on top of it to gamify, in effect, the entire experience of being off your phone. Because what we learned early on, even with very basic models, shoebox or even a cigar box, I call it, was people really love getting credit for the time away. Like it was important to them to say, hey, I put my phone down, pat me on the back and tell me that I spent 47 minutes, engaged in a family dinner. And then
are guys competitive and measuring things?
We also like to feel proud of ourselves as well. That was the number one word that we would say, how do you feel? Oh, I'm so proud of myself, which frankly is a bit ridiculous, but also it underscores like how big of a problem this is.
Yeah.
That's a long-winded way of saying we've created a platform. It is a beautiful device that lives in a home full of tech. It connects with an easy-to-use app that motivates you to put your phone away. And we're not prescriptive, but we do know that there's some times when it doesn't make sense to have your phone. Of course, family dinners. Of course, when you're trying to read a book. Of course, when you're trying to meditate or have quiet time or pray. When you're one-on-one with your spouse, the last thing you want is your phone in front of you. And I could tell you story after story on that front. When you're trying to have a conversation with your 13-year-old daughter or son, and they're about to be vulnerable and you pull out your phone, you kill it. So we know that this helps people engage and connect way more than having the phone, in front of them.
So yesterday, I'm standing in my kitchen, and Ocean, who's 8, is home from school, not feeling well, and I'm in the kitchen, and I'm doing whatever I'm doing that I'm justifying doing on my phone, right? I always do I'm scheduling something. I'm ordering groceries. I'm like, it's always like a healthy justification until it's not. But he walks out in the kitchen, and the thing that was just perfect is he just strolls on in, and he's like, hi, I'm Jon Vroman, and I'm addicted to my phone. This is what he does.
Gosh.
Hi, I'm Jon Vroman. I'm addicted to my phone. Oh my God.
Beautiful.
That's incredible.
I love Tiger and Ocean, by the way. I've got one of my daughters is named Echo, so I'm all with you on the creative names.
Yes.
And I'll tell you what's impressive about that story and what we've seen with RO. So when we built this product, we just assumed we were building it for families like ours, which our kids called 11 to 16 at this point. A child that has a phone, right? And certainly we've seen families buy it with, in that stage of life. But what's been more exciting is to see the families with young kids, because it's kids like Ocean who will take their dad's phone and put it inside the RO and say, all right, Dad, time to go play with me, time to play Army Men, time to go outside and play catch. And what's amazing about that is you're instilling that habit, and you're changing the relationship they see with that device before they get one in their hands. And let's be clear, when they get a device in their hands, everything changes, right? You suddenly open the world to them.
100%.
Well, what's interesting too is the great thing about the 4-year-olds, the 8-year-olds, we hear a bunch of these stories of those kids who notice, but they're not yet so hardwired that they accept that reality that dad's always going to be on his phone. So they'll call you out on it. They'll say, hey, put your phone away. By the time the kids get 10, 11, 12, I mean, and again, this is scientific. They have these neurological pathways that have been hardwired to say, not quite hardwired, they're still flexible, but to say that, oh, dad's on his phone, I'm not going to bother him, or I'm not going to be vulnerable right now. That's, by the way, that's a heartbreaking thought to me, that your kid could be in a spot, if it goes too long, where they say, I'm not gonna bother daddy's on his phone. Where if they're 4 or 8, they're like, hey, put down your phone, or hey, make fun of you for being on your phone too much. And that's such an opportunity. You can look at that on a negative sense, like, oh crap, I've missed some years, but maybe you can still get that time back. You can still make a change in the future, but it's such a freaking opportunity for us as dads with young kids to show them all of our presence and acceptance by just putting this small device away. Because what happens is, Jon, when you put down your phone, you bestow value on people around you. If you and I were at lunch right now and you said, hey bro, can I talk to you about something? Yeah, hold on 1 second. Do you mind if I put my phone in this pouch? Let me put this away. All of a sudden you feel like, okay, that's an entry, that's an invitation for vulnerability. That's an invitation for
Yes.
total presence. And Joey's totally locked in on me. And we have that opportunity every single day as dads to do that for Tatiana or Tiger or Ocean or whoever our Tatianas, Tigers, and Oceans are in our lives, to tell them that they're more important to us than anything else around us. Because again, not to continue to beat this horse here, but that's saying that that person is more important than 7 billion other people on the planet. You're shutting out every other voice for that one voice, the person across the table from you.
Yeah, absolutely. This is, it reminds me, years ago, I would see hints of people doing this with their phones in unique ways. Like a buddy who had, maybe it was 4 kids. It was 10 years ago, but the phone was still an issue. And they would do a phone basket. So all the phones went into the basket during dinner, and at night there was like 8 p.m. He just went around with the basket and just collected all the devices. Kind of cool.
Yeah.
Your device looks like it's beautifully designed, by the way. Props to you for that. But is about the size of a shoebox or so, maybe a little bit bigger.
Yeah, approximately.
Yeah. And
for a
when you
family.
throw the device in there, it starts tracking how long it's been in there. And it also charges it, right? Is it
Correct.
wireless charging?
Wireless
Really
and
cool.
wired.
And then when you pull it out, I understand it prompts you to maybe even update what you were doing during that time.
Yeah. I've found it does. You can go almost like a fitness app. You say, hey, yeah, fitness app notices your heart rate's elevated. What were you doing? And then you can tag whatever you may have been doing. This is the exact same thing where you get done with your time and you can tag that time. And one, it feels great to see that. But what's really cool, we all get our Sunday screen time report from Apple that shows that we were on our phones for 36 hours a day or whatever it is. And so that's 2 things. It doesn't feel great. And secondly, it's not actionable, because some of that time too, if I were on my phone for, a bunch of time, that could have been me using Waze from get to point A to point B. So it's not actually reflective of how I was using my phone. So there's a Monday morning report with RO that shows the aggregate of those things you were doing. And I don't know about you, and maybe a lot of guys listening, on a Sunday night, I would look back and be like, was I really there for the family this weekend? What's great about this is it quantifies, it tells me, yes, you were. I know exactly. I can look at my screen time report right now and it'll say that I've spent, probably 10 days of family time so far this year, apart from my phone. And we know that that difference, that distinction is really, really important apart from your phone. I was just talking, we have a podcast and I was recording with a guy by the name of Dr. Maxi Heitmeyer, who's at the London School of Economics. He only studies human interaction with smartphones. And he says that the presence of the phone equals usage of the phone, which was fascinating to me. But he said, because we are at all times anticipating something coming in if our phone's there with us. So we actually are using our phone. So the distinction that we have of you physically distant from your phone is really, really important. And so that aggregation of time, the tagging, is very gratifying, with the goal of you feel good about yourself. So then you repeat the action again. So it's that habit loop cycle. That's cue, craving, response, reward. When that reward feels good, you go back to the front and then you start doing that habit again.
100%. I think I remember reading about the 20-second rule from Sean Aker, the happiness advantage or something. And he talked about setting a guitar in the room and how he played it more often when it was just within 20 seconds of reach. Or you hear stories about Navy SEALs that still have to put their shoes and their workout gear by the door. Otherwise they'll talk themselves out of it. And, one of the most disciplined humans on earth. So interesting, those habits. And I know you guys have done the deep dive there. Here's a question. I'll play devil's advocate if I can for just a second, because I imagine that there's guys going, look, if it's a tool, if it's anything that helps me to be more present with my family, you've got my attention. Your price point works for our community, especially. Like, I don't think that's not a barrier to entry. And I'm trying to ask myself, what are the barriers to entry for guys? Like, how would they talk themselves out of this? Right. And what do you think is the biggest hurdle from a guy just saying yes, going and getting an RO, which we have to get to the name, by the way, why it's called RO in a minute. But what would stop them from just going and getting this done?
I would answer it in the same way that I told myself for years and answered it to myself. So, I mean, and this is a high achieving audience, so I think they'll resonate. I pride myself on having a lot of willpower and discipline, and I failed over and over and over.
Right.
Look, I can get up at 4:30 and run for 2 hours to train for a marathon, bike for 6 hours on the weekend, get in the pool and swim, still work, do all those things. But for some reason, I could not put this phone away. And I have drawers and I have baskets and I have a car I could leave it in at night. I had all these things. And every week or day I would challenge myself to do that. And it just never happened. So it just occurred to me like that doesn't work. Right. And as we studied more about habits, we learned, and James Clear says this in Atomic Habits, environment is always stronger than willpower. So to your example of leaving the shoes out or seeing the exercise device, like that matters, right? And that's why we designed RO to sit in a high traffic area in the house. That's why it had to be beautiful so that, your spouse would want it in the kitchen or the family room, that it would be that invitation calling out, say, oh yeah, I'm still here. You don't need me right now. Drop your phone in, go do something more important. So I would just say, look, if someone can do that, like if they are in the 0.111 or 0.0001% of guys that are super disciplined and they've got a drawer or a basket, man, we celebrate that. Keep doing that. And there are people like that for sure. I know people that don't have a TV in their house. Like I'd be divorced if I suggested that in my family. So again, in fact, we even say, like, if someone graduates tomorrow after a few years, we'll celebrate that as well. Like we just want to get people disengaged with their device, because when you change the relationship with your phone, you change the relationship with everyone around you.
Yeah. It's interesting I'm fascinated by the environmental cues. I was just thinking, in our living room, my wife will put a tapestry over the TV, that hangs on the wall. She'll put a tapestry over it. And it's just that one little thing where rather than just turning the TV on, you have to go up and physically remove this tapestry. And it kind of gets you to check in, like, is this what I really want to do? Because it's just you're adding friction points to the things that you don't want. If you could just put your phone 10 feet away from you, if you'd have to lift a box and make a conscious decision to re-engage with it, I can imagine that's what's so effective. And it's also the positive. It was interesting. I was wondering, is it a cue on both sides where one, you're like, there's my phone, it's right there in that box, should I go pick it up? Or the other one is, there's the box, I should go put my phone in it and engage with my family. I also like the idea that they're investing in it, because I do think when there's money on the line, you have more investment in it. So your model of like a recurring revenue stream, building the app, building the community, I think is really smart, because I think we should have skin in the game with it. And I think we'd use it more that way.
Absolutely. And it continues. All of us know that we have a place for our phone. Everybody I've met either has a shoebox or a drawer. So we all have the opportunity right now, in the same way that all of us have an opportunity to go burn calories on a run that costs nothing, right? But a lot of us, for myself, I need accountability, I need community, and I need a plan and system, because we know a plan inspires confidence. So I have a plan for my relationship with my phone, and the accountability of having a financial kind of skin in the game is important for the user, but it's really important for us as a company, because we have to continue to innovate and make sure that the app experience particularly is so compelling that it's so helpful to get people to the point where they can put down their phone. So we're constantly iterating on that app to make sure this is delivering exactly what it needs to, whether it's the achievements and badges and streaks and building kind of the gamification in, or if it's building in challenges to where you feel like, okay, I'm motivated for February. So in February right now, it's the challenge is for people to have RO time with somebody in their family for at least 15 days. Next month, it's a reading challenge. So the point is not us putting our phones down. The point is the things that happens on the other side. And so for us, we have a high incentive on a recurring revenue basis that we have to continue to justify that monthly subscription to our users.
What's coming up for me is question, I think about barriers to entry for people. And I'm thinking about somebody going, well, I need to check with my spouse, right, on something like this. Well, I can't speak to somebody's family agreements on how and where to spend money. But it seems to me that this would also be one of those products that you don't need somebody else to agree to do it. Like, it's not like I have to go convince my wife to say yes to this. I would just do it. And then I would be like, this is really important to me. I'm managing my own addiction. I want to challenge myself. I want to see how much time I could put my phone away and not make it about like the we. I think we as a family have a problem. I think we, like, the minute you start doing that, it's, they just hear, I do. You think I have a problem. I would rather, I've found in my own experience, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about this too, is that if the man changes himself, and then the spouse says, I love the change I see, they're far more likely to be then interested in what created that change, right? Versus, there's almost if you feel, I think that's real leadership. I think that's the point. You go there first, you do it first, and let people be attracted to the light and to the heat and the fire of that particular success story, and attract attention, versus like going out and being like, I need you to do this, because what I'm really saying is, I don't know if I could do it on my own. I need you to do it with me. And that just puts your burden on somebody else. Like, I need you to be great to solve my problem.
See, here's the great thing for all the listeners. I've spoken with all your wives, and they said a blanket yes, the blanket yes to anything that makes you more present with them or attentive to the kids. I spoke with all of them. So here's what's really, really cool about what you just said. I believe, and especially because of men who have high vision and high ambition, we come up with a freaking lot of ideas and a lot of cool things we could do as a family. So I believe, this may be a hot take, I believe that our wives in some ways are testing us to see what sustains. And so you coming in with a hot new idea of the week, they're not going to respond to that. But if they see you sustainably, that it holds and it takes, they are going to listen over time. They're just waiting to see if it's going to flame out. And I do think they are in some ways. It's a test that they're throwing out. Are you really committed to this or not? Before I listen to anything, I have to see the change in you. And if you can do that silently, and by the way, I say silently, John, I give myself I pat myself on the back a lot at home when I'll go make a big production. Hey guys, I'm putting my phone away because I'm signaling to them that they're important, but I also want the pats on the back. But if you can do that, if you can get past that point and you just do it on your own and they follow your leadership, that's absolutely more sustainable, and they will respond to it. It literally took both of our wives
years.
It took them years to use RO, because they were waiting to say, is this really making a difference?
Is this going to stick?
Yep.
Yeah. Guys, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's so funny. Yeah. I mean, Joey quit his job to launch this business. We're all in, right? And our wives are some of the worst users early on it. And then one day, my wife's name's Misty. She says, Heath, I think I understand RO.
Yeah.
It's like a few months ago. I said, well, what happened? She said, well, I sat down to do my morning quiet time devotional, and I decided to put my phone away. And she goes, I had 3 or 4 experiences where I wanted to pick it up and send a text or call someone to do that. And then she realized, oh no, this is my time. Like, this is amazing. And she's now she's probably the leader in the family in terms of, putting the phone away. And we've done some cool things in the app where, if Tatiana were to put her phone as an example, it would send you a nudge and say, hey, Tatiana just started a session, right? So we're starting to encourage people to do it at the same time. But yeah, no, I think we do have to lead as men, because as Joey said, like and I'm the same way. I'm a vision guy. I've got ideas all the time. Like, we've got a massive 365-day calendar in our house right now because of me, right? And my wife didn't ask for it, and therefore it's not hung up on the wall yet, because I keep trying to talk her into doing it every night. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. But what probably needs to happen is I need to hang it up, start writing some things, and demonstrate that this is important to us, and see if she tags along.
Yeah, 100%. I was telling you guys earlier before we started recording about the first retreat that we ever had back in 2016 in Philadelphia. At that event, one of the ideas that was at the end of the event, when people were like, this is the best idea, because that was putting your phone in a gun safe. And one of the guys had done that as a way to signal to his family that they were important. So I think what also is so cool is, like, if the family knows the purpose of that box, then every time that you walk over and you place your phone in that box, that is saying something to your family. It's saying, I'm making a conscious decision to engage with you guys. I want you to see that I'm putting my phone in there. I think that there's all those, you hear like so much of parenting is what's caught, not taught.
Yeah.
Right. So you could sit down and lecture to your kids all day long about how to manage their own screen time. but how are you demonstrating that? It reminds me of, reading and meditating. And I used to do that early in the morning before they'd wake up, because that was the strategy. Like, we'd talk about that. Make sure you get up, read, meditate, be ready for the family, do all your, and I was like, that's genius. And I did that until I realized that the downside of that, or the dark side of that, is my kids never saw me read, meditate, or anything, because I was doing it all before they woke up. So I would tell them meditation's so important, reading so important. They're like, well, you never do it. I'm like, I do it in the morning. Yeah. But it's the visual representation of how are they seeing us manage ourselves with our phones.
Yeah.
That to me is like, the symbolism of it alone is genius.
I think as they get older too, there's nothing that would, I believe there's nothing, this goes back to your question of modeling it on your own. There's probably nothing that could repel your kids more than hypocrisy either. I think there's nothing, for me to dictate that for them, but then not model it myself. I think there's that's a very quick path to a loss of respect and them repelling from what you're telling them.
Dude, I came up to Tiger the other day and he was on his phone and I was asking him something and he was ignoring me, and I could feel myself getting angry. And I'm like, dude, when I talk to you, I need you to respond. You can't be buried in your phone. And he goes, is this a joke? Like, you're constantly doing that to me. I walk up to you, I ask a question. You're like, I'm in the middle of something. You're like, I lecture him about, if you see me on my phone, you can't interrupt me because I'm probably like reading something I'm the biggest hypocrite in that. In fact, I have, as a 47-year-old man, seriously started doubting myself recently, because he is so smart. I think when they're younger, you can get away with a lot of shit because you're just older and you bulldoze your way through it. But when they start getting into that with the teenager, for him especially, and he starts calling me more directly, more eloquently, more with what is the word I'm looking for? His intelligence in communication continues to evolve, the pinpointed accuracy of his statements is giving me new information to grow as a man. I'm just realizing how much room. I always say that there's always so much room, but then I'm somehow surprised when I'm still learning and growing with these guys,
It's so true. It's just like a constant truth serum from when you're young, or when they're young, they say you remove a bunch of selfishness, but you to your point, you can hide some stuff. There's no hiding now. There's no hiding. And on top of that, Heath's kids his two oldest are juniors in high school. He's doing college tours in a week or two. Buddy, you don't have much time left. So it's like, you got to recognize that the time is so fleeting too. Yeah. And we don't have time to mess around with it. We really don't. And there's no time for it. And then, but again, it's back to like, we can't intend our way out of it. That intentions are great. That's fine. And we can't willpower our way out of it. We have to set up whatever that tapestry is that you put in front of your TV. We have to find all those tapestries in the areas of our lives that are most important and have planned friction so that we can get all the freedom we want in the areas that we want.
Yeah. At the same time, no shame, no guilt. We all struggle with this. I mean, look, we started a technology company to solve a technology issue. So we're pro technology. We're pro phone. Yeah. Joey and I say all the time, like, we're never giving up our phones. Like, we like what they do for us, but and I would argue they're additive in every area of life except for what we're talking about right now, relationships. Yeah. Right. So we got to put some tapestries up to guard those times that are sacred, those people that are sacred. And we think we've created something that helps people with that. And we've seen it. Frankly, the stories we're getting already have indicated as much.
You have on the website that 75% of the time you spend with kids over the lifetime will be spent by age 12. That's insane. When I think about Tiger being, 13 now, I'm like, I'm a third of the way to 18. I look at that as like 0 to 6, 6 to 12, and 12 to 18. Each have kind of a magical component to it. All cool, but that's a scary thought for me.
but it's the truth. I mean, think about
Yeah.
how much time you spend, you know, with your parents. And yeah, I've got 3 siblings. I don't spend a lot of time with them either. I mean, it's just the reality of life, and we all got our own families, move away, and you know, do things that are important to us. So
And
my hope and my goal.
79% of married couples admit technology distracts them from connecting with each other. Talk to us real quick about, I want to get to the name too. So I'm putting that line in the water, but success stories. Talk to us about like the impact that you're seeing now that the product's getting out there and you're hearing people get back to you. Like what is energizing to you that you are receiving from community impact right now?
You know, you have the quantitative stats, and those are fun. You know, we have thousands of people on the platform. We have, as a community, people have spent in aggregate, we've spent 100,000 hours away from our phone. That's really, really fun. But it's the stories we get. And John, I'm a crier, so you know, we get these, and it brings you to tears. We had a team offsite a couple weeks ago where I spent 10 minutes just reading through just story after story after story after story. One of my favorite ones came last week, and it's so small and basic. This one, we have 100 of these, but this one, it was just so small and basic. This guy named Mike, he lives in California. I've never met him. I mean, that's what's fun about this. These are people coming from all over that we don't know. And he said he watched a movie with his 8-year-old daughter the other day, and she said, "Dad," she goes, "you've never watched a movie with me without your phone." She goes, "You watch the movie so much more." And you think that's a little observation from an 8-year-old girl, but think of the volumes that speaks. She noticed 2 things. She noticed when dad is not with her, and she noticed the stark difference of when dad is with her. So what do you think it does for that girl when in believing in herself? What do you think it does for that girl when later in life she's faced with comparison, but she is steady in dad's love, that she knows that she's adored by dad because he's much more important than anything. God, here I go. That she's so much more important than anything else in the world to him, because she's had those moments. And we have that freaking opportunity that's so great and so grand, but it feels so small in the meantime. It feels so little because our kids can be boring sometimes. You know what I mean? That's a hot take, but we can't sacrifice that right then, our own entertainment for what's in the future and for what we're building inside of them. So we get those stories again and again and again, and it's so simple, it's so small, that putting down your phone would do that, but it does. Heath said it earlier, you change your relationship with your phone, you change your relationship with everyone around you. So it's the stories that move us. It's the things that keep driving us. We 100% believe marriages are saved through this. We 100% believe that, you know, body image issues are cured through this, all from a different relationship with our phone. And it's an amazing, for all the dudes listening, like, it's maybe the greatest opportunity of your life to be able to communicate that message to your kids.
Joey, how old are your kids?
Almost 15, almost 13.
Yeah. It's awesome.
It's awesome.
I'm so impressed, guys, by what you've created. I have so many things I want to talk about still, but I've been baiting it for a while. So why RO?
RO, we had this great company name when we started. We were going to call it Smarter, SMRTR, because it's going to be outsmart your smartphone. And we said, you know, we got a lot of things we can go, but this is the company name. And then we met with our branding agency, and the first question they asked was, "Hey, God, we love what you're doing. How much do you like that name?" "No, we love the name. The name's great." And they said, "Okay, let us come up with some other ideas." There were a bunch of reasons why Smarter didn't make sense. And they presented a list of names, and they had one that stopped us in our tracks, and that was the word RO. And RO is a Maori term. That Maori is a New England tribe. New Zealand. What did I say? New England.
As well.
Goodness gracious. New England. Yeah. From New Hampshire. No, New Zealand tribal language, and it means to notice. So that is holistically what we're trying to do. Everybody talks about focus, and everybody talks about, but we can't focus on anything until we notice it first. And that notice could be, maybe my son's a little bit off day, or gosh, I feel something and I need to explore this a little bit. And so it goes back, and it's a beautiful word. I mean, even just as you look at it in RO, we spell it in lowercase letters, and it just kind of has a nice symmetry to it. And it's really been a great rallying cry just for us on, let's slow down and notice. And we can't really do that when the world's shouting at us through our phones. So we're really, really happy with it. And it's been it's been a good North Star for us and kind of guiding us to what we want people to do, which is just notice what's happening inside of them and around them.
Glad I asked that question.
Love the New England. I was too excited.
That's right. The Patriots are tied into this somehow.
That's right.
It's awesome, guys. It's really, really cool. Let's talk about how guys get one. If they're at the point where, like, you know, all right, I'm tapping, I get it, I'm addicted, I know I need to focus. And we know that, by the way, from our own surveys, from our own, just having, you know, a finger on the pulse of this community, that the number one thing is how do I be more present? That's the number one thing. And I think most people would agree that the screens are probably the number one challenge in order to become more present in so many. And we could just, I mean, there's, again, hours of conversation we could have around this. It's so, the concept of addictions and awareness and then habit creation, it's just so fascinating. But I think you've really created just a beautiful solution, starting with wanting to solve it for yourselves and now share it with the world. Let's talk about how guys go get this. So practical steps, where do they go sign up? How do they get one? How fast can they get it in their homes? Any advice on getting this integrated right away? Let's talk about putting this into play.
Well, one quick thing, we have a code for Front Row Dads listeners to make sure you get. So this is a monthly subscription to get a free month. We want to make sure that the entire community has access to this and incentive to move quickly on that. And the way to order, you go to goro.com. Yeah, that's our website, and you order from there, and it's in your home within days. So it'll be, the device comes to you, you set up the app before. It's very, very approachable, very simple. And you add your family group. It's a really quick process. It's super, super frictionless to be able to do that. And so I'd encourage everybody, I mean, truly go get it done today. It's really important. I want to tag on one thing, and that I don't know if this is kind of dealing in semantics too much, but it's an encouragement to the guys who may say, God, I'm so addicted to my phone. I believe, and this is, again, I mentioned the Dr. Maxie Heitmeyer. We talked with him about the characteristics of how we use our phones. And I said, is this a habit or is this an addiction? He said, the usage of phones is not characteristic of addiction, even though we say we're on our phone so much. And the reason I make that distinction is, if the guys who out there have said, I'm addicted to my phone, or my kids are addicted to my phone, you're just wrong. And here's why that's important, because you are a good habit away from things being drastically different in your life. You're not going to shiver up and have cold chills. I promise you, you're not going to actually go through any kind of withdrawals. You're going to set up an environment, and you're going to set up habits that are going to instantly change how you interact with others. And it's going to get better over time, and you're going to build that habit up. When we say we're addicted, there's a certain amount of hopelessness, or I can't do anything about it. When you say I have bad habits, you're like, well, damn, I can do that. You know what I mean? That's easy. I can make that change. So I want to make that distinction, because I do think it's important that you're just a habit away from having what you want.
Yeah. And I would add, in terms of incorporating it into your lifestyle, we touched on this earlier, lead by example. This is a conversation with your family. This is not a mandate. Aura was never built to be a parental control device. Frankly, for most of our clients, it's become a reverse parental control device, you know, where the young kids are taking and putting their parents' phones in. So, man, lead by example, demonstrate how this is changing you. Others will follow along. We've seen it. We've heard it already. Be a good role model for your kids, if nothing else. Your wife eventually will come along. Trust me, it took mine 3.5 years, but you put in the effort, it'll get there. And then just in terms of the environment, I would put it in a place where you can see it. It is meant to stand out, but also fade away. I know that's kind of a contradictory phrase there, but kitchen, we see it mostly. Family room, somewhere in between. Again, this needs to be, we have a Peloton, and we had Peloton in our basement for a while. I never rode it. We moved it up to the top, the mid-level. All of a sudden I'm on it 3 days a week. So it's amazing how placement of this makes a huge difference. And just have conversation with your wife, have a conversation with your kids. Again, this is not meant to be heavy-handed. This is meant to be something that's an invitation for everyone to be able to look each other in the eyes more often.
One thing an interesting thing we've found from moms have said that this, and by the way moms and dads look at Look
Everything.
at this. Yeah, everything is much different. They look at this much differently, but we've heard this from moms, and I think this is really powerful. The fact that it's a physical thing that lives in your home, moms have said, whether they use it a lot or not, they say that this represents who we want to be as a family. That's a physical representation of, hey, this is who my last name is Odom. The Odom family is. We are present. We are engaged with each other. We're intentional with our time. And so this is and because it's nice looking, that's where wives, really like it, but it represents who they are as a family. And we all know you start acting more like the person you perceive yourself to be. And so because it's a physical thing, that's what people are drawn to it. And you actually become more like that person just because it represents who you would like to be.
I'm doing a checklist in my head of do's and don'ts when I put this in my home. One of mine, which I think we've established, is that I think I'm going to do this just for me. I'm going to let the action speak for itself, create the conversation. I definitely want to talk about it if people are interested in talking about it. The don't for me is don't shame my family for not participating. Don't be all, have this grandiose approach to I'm better than them because I'm doing this. So I'm just going to remind myself this has to be kind of a quieter action. And then when they're asking, more of a reflection on my own decisions, why I'm doing this, but I don't need to mansplain this. I don't think I need to mansplain habits. I don't think I need to mansplain tech, addictions or not addictions, as you were talking. But I really do see this as a very silent habit that speaks loudly because of what you're doing. I love that old quote, whoever it's attributed to, is your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. I love that. And so this to me is that thing, and I'm all in for it. So if guys want to go get it, they go to goaro.com. That's GOARO.com. And then what's the code that they can use?
Let's just make it Front Row Dads. Yeah.
Okay.
That'll be the code at checkout. Front Row Dads.
Front Row Dads, all lowercase, all one word, no spaces.
Yep.
Front Row Dads at checkout. And that's it, guys. And then what I also think is really cool about this, I was just thinking that, I'm imagining this being in the kitchen. I know exactly where it would go, right on the breakfast bar area. I can see it there now. And I also was thinking how cool it would be to have it spark conversation with friends. So friends come over and they go, what's that? We always have people living in Austin. First of all, is we have people visiting us every week, but people come over, and it just sparks this conversation. And then I think it gives us a chance to talk about these things in front of our kids or in front of our spouses without directing it at them. Yeah. So this other person comes to the house and they start asking about it. We get to talk about our values or how it's helped us, but it's this information by proximity rather than when you sit down and you look someone in their eyes and, you're again, preaching, comes up across as preaching a lot of times, which I think is very ineffective. Yeah. But just when somebody's overhearing a conversation, I think those are big moments.
Absolutely. The way I would hope that people would describe it, and describe however you want, as people describe it, it's not, oh, that's a box for our phones. It's that's my cue and tool to presence. That's a beginning of a session. We call it RO sessions, but that meaning your phone is the tracking your time away, but the RO session, that's a session where you're noticing, you're fully immersed and you're present and you're noticing things happening around you to a degree that you're not all throughout the rest of the day.
Can you compete with friends? If I have a couple buddies that have can you see their stats?
Absolutely. Yeah, we got, of course. And of course you'd ask that. But I wouldn't guess that an ultra marathoner would guess that or would ask that. So no, yes, absolutely. You got a group, you form it with your guys and you can see each other's stats, and absolutely compete for sure.
And that's where shame and guilt does work.
Yeah, that's right. Because in Front Row Dads, we have these small groups that we call bands, and I could just see people as bands getting together and challenging themselves. We do it with our Aura rings. Like, I'm a big fan of Aura Ring.
Yeah.
And we'll be on, vacation or traveling with a couple of buddies, and we're all standing in the kitchen and we're comparing our Aura stats. Like, how much deep sleep did you get? 2.5. I never get over 2. Like, it's hysterical, man.
Like, Joey and I are wearing Whoop bands right now. We do the exact same thing every morning.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, but it's fun, because that's really, I can tell you right now that if I have 2 drinks within 2 hours of bed, after years of doing this data analysis, that my heart rate will go up by 10 beats a minute, from 48 to 58 typically. Wow. Right? My HRV will go from an average of 100 to an average of 50. I also will tell you that if I do that for 2 nights in a row, it decreases by about another 10 or 20% after that. I can also tell you that if I had 2 drinks and I had sex that night, that it would only, that it doesn't have as big of an impact on my sleep. So if my wife cares about my long-term health, I hope she's listening to this. So
she'll just cut off the alcohol.
Sorry guys, I just turned this from family-friendly episode you could have shared on your website to
it's funny that it's a great story, because I always make the point with folks in conversation. I say, look, when I'm out to dinner with my wife, if my phone is face up, I might as well not be there. If I turn it face down, have a good conversation.
Yeah.
If I give it to her and say, put it in your purse, we're probably snuggling later. So,
dude, what's so interesting? Oh, so all right, full circle, guys. The text I meant to tell you was that when I was reading it earlier, I'm grateful for your request to snuggle. Snuggles in quotations.
Well, I noticed you said and on and on and on. I figured the on and on and on meant something different.
So, guys, wait a minute. I think we just found the leverage point for every front row dad to buy this. Is there a correlation between an increase in sex life and how much time the phone is in inside the RO?
We don't have the data, but qualitatively, I can tell you, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that by the way, it's like all of a sudden this episode got real interesting. The stats we really want to know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's you almost laugh saying it. It's like, oh, wait a second. So if you're more attentive to your wife, she'll be more intimate with you. Oh, huh?
Yeah, that's big shocker.
Yeah,
big shocker.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah. Huh, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Guys, I'm so grateful for this conversation. I knew the second that I had learned about your story, and I also got to tell you this too. Well, let me finish that thought. I knew this was going to be a great conversation. I knew this was a subject that was so important. I really believe in your concept here, and I'm excited to become a customer. And then I'm excited to have a conversation down the road about what's happened after I've been using this and the front row dads have been using this. A couple of things I want to mention as I close out, and then I'd like to give you some airtime to say anything you want to say. One is I want to honor you for your friendship and the relationship you guys have, because I see a lot of partnerships. You guys have incredible presence and chemistry together. I noticed that because I built a whole community focused around brotherhood. So I'm highly attuned to men who are building, creating, doing life together with a certain amount of vulnerability, a big dose of courage, some good humor sprinkled in along the way, and knowing when to focus and be serious when you need to get stuff done. You guys, in listening to you in other interviews or in your videos, and just, it was immediate to me. I'm like, I think those guys are genuinely great friends. And I think that's where this whole thing began. So the fact that it began in a brotherhood with 2 men who were talking about life and then solving problems, like, that is exactly who we are in front row dads. Like, that is why we exist. Men having honest conversations about where they're struggling and then finding real solutions. We literally have a framework built around it. It's the 3 R's. We call it the 3 R's: relationships, resources, results. That's our framework. First, the relationship, 2 guys having genuine dialogue about what's not great, what is great. And then through that conversation, they connect to all the resources that are needed, because they'll be resourceful. They will find the resources within themselves, within their community, and then they will get the result they want. You literally did exactly that thing that we preach and talk about. So I really want to tip my hat to you for that. And I wanted to reflect that back to you and say thank you. Because it's a great inspiration for me. It's a great inspiration for me, far beyond your product. It's a great inspiration.
Well,
I'm going to cut myself off there actually before I say my final piece. Guys, is there anything you want to add to this show? Anything you want to say before we sign off?
God, just say thank you. What a great conversation. And there's such alignment. I mean, you talked about it a second ago with our friendship. I mean, RO started because of values alignment. We met at a men's church group on a 6 a.m. on a Friday morning, randomly sat together, 600 guys in a room. And this all started our friendship, this business, everything because of values alignment. And what's interesting, we tell the story every so often is, when I started this business, I had a bunch of old partners from my last company. But I called Joey. Joey hadn't started a business before. And also I said, hey, come join me. I need you to quit your job. I want you to move to Knoxville. Like big life decisions, right? And every step along the way is like, I'm in. I believe. And I just feel like that values alignment, and you described it better than I'm describing it now. Man, it underpins everything. And it's so important as we move to the future, because look, being co-founders is not easy, right? We're going to have disagreements and challenges and good days and bad days, but if we've got that basis of values, leading us, then I think we'll be able to navigate those rough waters.
I think the other thing I would say, John, for me, and this may be an encouragement to the dads, there's a guy by the name of Justin Earley who wrote a book, Habits of the Household, and it's a great book that's all about habits. And he's writing a book on friendship, which is I'm excited to read. But he talked about how in one of his darkest moments, and he was referring to his wife, he said that she believed in a future for me that I couldn't see for myself. And I would encourage the guys listening here, surround yourself with guys who can see that future that you can't see for yourself, even in your dark moments, who will call you out when you're being an idiot, who will encourage you when you're feeling down and point you towards that future. Heath does that for me when I get, I'm an emotional roller coaster on, sometimes, and it's just staying steady, but having those guys around you who can see that future for you that you can't see yourself, and then maintaining this hope and not being one of those guys who believes that the current situation will last forever, good or bad. Don't be that guy. Be the guy that knows that this too shall pass, good or bad. You're going to get through the storm. Every storm in history has passed except for the one that's currently happening, right? So you're going to get through it, and have those guys around you, and just hold out that hope. It's worth the freaking fight. It's worth that battle for that time we have with our kids, for the presence for our spouses. It is worth the fight. Absolutely. And so we can maintain a very positive outlook and approach here, and the opportunity, and maybe this is the last thing I'll leave, is the opportunity we have to put these practices into play, to have that life we really want and aspire to.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, thank you. I'm going to say one final piece here, and then we'll wrap. One quick reminder: men, go get this. It's GOARO, GoRO.com. At checkout, use Front Row Dads, all one word, lowercase, no spaces, and you will get your first month free for this. And the last thing I want to say is this is both a recognition and an invitation to our community. When the recognition is this: for a product like this, and for a lot of home products, the world would say that women are predominantly buying this, that the women are predominantly taking action. I have found that in our community, men take action. I have found in our community, men will go get this. Men will take the lead. These men in our community will do what's necessary to bring into their homes the tools, the resources, the focus, and that I have found that we are not representative of the rest of the world, but I believe that we are what I hope becomes the norm down the road. And, I will say this to you two gentlemen about our community, but I also want to say this to our community, that I believe here's what we are and here's what we're fighting against. And some of the guys that have been listening to the show for a while know that my belief on this. When you go to Google right now and you type in dad space and wait for it to pre-populate what everybody is searching for, Google suggesting terms, the number one thing, it's going to be dad joke, dad jokes, dad bod, all things relating to dad that are not complimentary and not the type of role model that is inspiring to people. When you look at television, movies, a lot of the sitcoms that are out, they all want to put dad in this role of this bumbling idiot who can't do anything. And that is exactly what we're fighting against. And we're creating a new father for today and into the future that is a man who is strong and kind and all the things, because we don't fit into a lot of the other buckets. We're not, you know, and it's not a poke at all these other groups or who they are or what they stand for. It's just that Front Row Dads is unique, right? You know, sometimes like even with church groups, they have this reputation of like, just these guys being so nice. They're not cool. They're kind of in, you know, they don't wear cool clothes. They're just, you know, it's Mr. Nice Guy. It's just too much of that. And that's not everybody. That's not how I see you guys. Then you got other guys that are just all dominance, all fight, all war, all everything, right? And it's like, can we find a guy who has all of this? So we say Front Row Dads are men with range. They know they have the light and bright and joyful and kind and generous, all of that. And they've got this dark side that they're aware of and it's available to them. And they have all of this. They have this range of emotion, this range of who they are. It's this, and that is a guy that I think is a guy who hears this, and it's about this product, about these things that we talk about on this show. And then they go and they take action on this. And that's what, so I'm not only recognizing our community, but I'm inviting people who might be new to the show to step into that role, to not be hesitant, to not be, you know, on the fence constantly or tiptoeing around or cautious and overly cautious in your decisions, to be bold and to be a risk taker and to be innovative and to be leading and not wait for other men and what they're going to do, but you do what you know is right. And to experiment. And some of it's going to work and some it's not. I don't think your product is a guarantee home run for everybody. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying for the price point, roll the dice. Like for the price point, give it a shot. Like, what do you have to lose? Like, give it a go for a year, commit for it for a year and see how it goes. See if it changes. Let the results speak for themselves. And I'm not paid to do this. You guys aren't a sponsor. You're not, like literally, I'm literally talking to myself right now, right? I'm talking to myself, which is everyone, because we're all one. This is a reminder for me. It's a reminder for the guys, and it's calling in that which we want to be. So I'm not just talking about RO, I'm talking about everything right now, but it happens to be the focus of our conversation. So Joey and Heath, thank you, brothers, for being here. So appreciate it. Men, it's time to go take action. And also give your feedback to Joey and Heath. Let them know how it's going. Get the product, use it, share within our community, share a review with them. Let's be part of the solution. And that is it. Gentlemen, thank you again.
Thank you, Jon.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, brother.
GoRO.com.